Hey guys, welcome to episode 43 of the At the Coffee Table podcast. I'm Jason Clank, your host. And today I have the very distinct pleasure in interviewing Alexis Tearney of Tearney's Martial Arts. And a lot of you may know of or remember of Tearney's Martial Arts because she's the daughter of Greg Tearney, who created this martial arts studio 51 years ago and has been working this business within Central New York for many, many years. And I was just talking with Alexis off camera about how I remember her dad and his martial arts studio in Mattydale when it was Purple Dragons above the town tavern, and the great business that they did there. And they were there for a number of years. And I remember just students coming in and out of the studio. But some of Alexis's background, she is a fifth degree black belt instructor. I didn't realize the black belt went as high as they did with the degrees, but that's my own ignorance. She has recently kind of reinvented her dad's business after her mom and dad got out of the business. And I'm sure because of COVID that they reincorporated the business and pivoted into the virtual format, doing live martial arts instruction for adults and children, both in karate and kickboxing. Alexis has also told me that her and her husband also run an e-commerce store. So you guys are awfully busy.
We're very busy this year. It's funny. 2020 gets such a rap for being like the year of like the great disasters. But,
Yep.
For a lot of people and for us in particular, it has opened doors and created opportunities. And so depending on what side of that coin you fall on, it's definitely at least for my husband and my family, like it's created some new opportunities for us to kind of grow and seek out good things. So yeah, we're grateful. We're very grateful.
Absolutely. And I've actually talked about this in other podcast episodes that I did, that if it wasn't for the shutdown in March and April, I probably wouldn't have started this podcast, but it was one of my goals for this year. Yeah, it was one of my goals for this year. And, when business was slow and the real estate business was slow for me and stuff, I was like, well, I might as well jump right in. And now it's fun for me. It's not fun to be able to seek out people like yourself to talk to share some value, to share some information. So it's good. And, you think about the businesses that have closed or have failed because of everything going on, but the businesses like yours that have pivoted, even the restaurant business, when they had to pivot and do like curbside pickup and delivery and just to keep some business coming in. Was it difficult for you in the martial arts business or martial arts instruction to go virtual, to be able to, because I know for so my wife's a teacher, and it's very difficult for them. It's been difficult for them to really get across the instruction they're trying to the class, to the kids in the virtual environment, because it's just, there's so many factors in, and you really can't tell if they're grasping the concept or the instruction that they're getting.
Yeah, it's a completely different animal. I mean, if you asked me a year ago if I could see myself teaching karate on Zoom or virtual, I would have looked at you like you were crazy and told you that was just not possible.
Right.
But since, here we are, and, we're all very much getting acquainted with platforms like Zoom and Google Classroom. So it's now becoming the new normal. It is very different. It requires so much more planning and preparation. Physically, it is more exhaustive for me because I have to be much more animated to keep my students engaged. And I have to demonstrate and perform everything. Whereas like in the studio, I could kind of go on autopilot. I taught through both of my pregnancies, especially when I was like late in my pregnancies. And so, you can kind of float around the room and reposition yourself and not have to be like at the forefront of everything. When you're on camera, you are at the forefront of everything and you have to be on. So, with the students, we've evolved, like with this, and we're still learning as we go how to adapt and make it beneficial. But it's funny because I don't know if you're familiar with martial arts, but our particular style is very kata based, and katas are like patterns of movement, preset patterns of movement. So normally, like when I'm teaching with a student, I'll be like right next to them. You've got different learners. You've got visual learners, auditory
Right.
learners. You've got learners that you need to take them by the shoulders and say, no, turn this way. You
Right.
can't really do that on a screen. So I have had to learn and adapt different ways and different angles and, different methods of getting across to the different types of learning styles. But, we're doing it and it's working. And these kids are getting exercise. They're
Mhm.
working on their balance and their focus and their coordination and everything that they came to the martial arts for and the traditional standpoint. They're still able to get those benefits. And it's amazing to see it click. And it's like, it's working. All right, we can do this.
Now, what platforms are you using to? Is it just Zoom?
Yeah, just Zoom. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And for me, I mean, like, okay, like technology, I get it. Like I'm not the savviest person, but I'm
Right.
willing to learn and adjust with it. But it definitely took like a couple days of like, okay, how do you do this? And what's the best way or the right way? And so it definitely learning as we go. But it's been great. It definitely has.
Now, I know with for the educational side of things and the online learning that the biggest I think the biggest pet peeve for teachers or biggest obstacle we'll say is the distractions. The
Hmm.
dogs playing with the dog or
Yeah.
mom and dad walking in the back. How do you kind of minimize that to keep them on point when you're giving your instruction?
I think you kind of have to understand that that's just going to be part of it. And
Yeah.
like, for instance, like for the kids, especially, they're proud. They want you to see their dog and they want
Hmm.
you to, they want to show you. So I let them, every couple of months we might have like, show us your pet. And at the end of class for 5 minutes, everybody can hold up the cat or hold up the dog and, introduce them and they become kind of part of the class. Like it's okay. It's not obviously the most ideal thing, but for the most part, it's not as great of a distraction as once you give them that outlet to kind of show, like, then they're past it, they're over it, like the dog's doing what the dog does in the background and we're
Yeah.
having class and it's okay, it's totally okay.
So on the flip side of things, with your adult learners, is it a little bit more
Yeah.
fluid? Is it more, you come in and you do your instruction and
I mean, adults are always way easier, just being,
yeah,
having the maturity level and the ability to learn. Adults have always, I mean, even in a traditional standpoint, are going to be easier to teach. So, I mean, definitely not as challenging with them. And I find like they really appreciate it too, because for whatever their reasons are for choosing to do a virtual format, they're very grateful for it, to have that time, to have that outlet, to have the ability to exercise and and
yeah.
have their dojo space. So it's gratifying. It really is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about it too because with all this that's gone on for me and my daily routine. I mean, I start my day working out, and I've been
Mhm.
very grateful and fortunate to be able to just come down to my basement
Yeah.
and do my 45-minute workout and have that because of buying into one platform or another. So I can see. Now let me ask you this though, before I
Mhm.
forget. I know from friends of mine that are in martial arts that have become black belts that there's to test out to the black belt stage, the black belt
Mhm.
level is rather involved,
Yes.
as far as physically wise and what's expected. Is that still a possibility in
Yeah.
this realm?
100%. I have students that are with me that tested or were promoted, and we usually do our black belt testing over the course of the summer or during the summer months. So I have students that just tested in their final physical test over this past
Hmm.
summer. And they're working towards that for this summer, and that's their goal. That's why they're here. And so, we're doing the incremental testing along the way. So we do testing in a virtual format. They still get tested in a physical standpoint. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we're testing their stamina, their endurance, and we're testing, of course, their proficiency with the curriculum as well. And we're doing the belt promotions. Like we do belt promotion pickup usually a couple days after we hold the test ceremony. And so I think the beauty of that is once we roll back around to next summer, we'll have, you know, nice weather. We may not be able to spar or I mean, we'll see where this situation goes. You know what I mean? I know
Right.
even dojos that are operating physically, like they're not doing anything, like people are still in like their little boxes, they're not touching each other. So, we'll have to evolve with that, whatever the case may be this summer, but it's happening.
So,
Yeah.
and that's awesome, and that's great that
Yeah.
that you still have that you're kind of keeping the integrity of
Yeah.
the black belt program.
Yeah.
Um, do you see when this environment changes again and you're able to go back into the dojo setting or the studio setting, do you see yourself switching and pivoting again to going back into the studio?
I don't know if we're, I mean, it's funny. This virtual format, I didn't see this aspect of it when I first began it, but I have students that are in Ohio, in Maryland, that are well outside of the Syracuse region, but live in New York State. I just got a client. She just signed on. She's from Boston. She's working out from her house there. Like, didn't really see this, but this is pretty cool. Like we can still access people in greater amounts of people across the
Yeah,
entire United States, nationally and internationally, if we really wanted to go that far.
right.
So what I was kind of foreseeing is like once we set up in a physical location, this might become a hybrid program. Like there might be like the instructor, and then the digital, the people on the virtual format, and then behind the device will be the actual physical class taking place. There's a lot of schools that are doing that. Or there's schools that have a separate instructor dedicated to just the virtual program students, like they're off like in a separate space, in a smaller space, and they're teaching the virtual classes while in the bigger space the physical classes are taking place. So I mean, there's I to now have these people that have come to me and they're from so far away. I could never cut that off from them. Like this is going to continue, it's going to grow, and it's
Right.
pretty awesome.
Well, and you just hit a huge high point that I've been discussing was, and I learned this from a really great business coach earlier this year, was that our businesses have no boundaries anymore.
So,
You know, you're not bound by your locale. You're not even bound by the state.
mhm.
And so you have your clients in Boston and the other areas that you were talking about, and it really proves that because of the technology that we have right now, you could still grow your business and not have to
Yeah,
worry about those physical boundaries of the past, because it was your locale and whatever you could advertise in your locale and physically come to the studio,
right.
and now you can, it's limitless, it's almost limitless.
It really is. And to be honest, like I've really come to enjoy like this format. Of course, I miss the physical interaction and teaching the way I've always known it to be, but this has grown on me. Like I know a lot of instructors across the country who I've networked with who are just like they have a disdain for this like virtual format. Like they like I don't know if it's because of a want or desire for things to go back to normal, or if they just truly can't stand like the work that goes into it. But I
Right.
love it. Like this is it gives me satisfaction, and it there's freedom to it too, like we can, like my client in Boston, like I can work around her schedule, and it doesn't
Right.
have to be just my schedule. So it's really awesome. I'm very, very proud and happy with where it's going.
That's great. So, just to change gears a little bit,
Mhm.
I started seeing your content on Instagram, and not only the martial arts and the karate, but a lot of personal development type messages and information.
Yeah.
And I think, and it seems to me you're transcending what your teachings are on the martial arts side into your brand, so to say, and your messaging on Instagram. And
Yeah.
I can see it really kind of transcend a lot of the influencers that are out there just based on what you're putting out there.
Thank you
Have
so
you
much.
gotten, you're welcome. Have you gotten a lot of feedback? What kind of interactions have you had because of that?
So I have to be honest, talking about the personal development aspect of the martial arts, like that's always existed inside the dojo. But most people
Mhm.
wouldn't know that unless they came to the dojo and started training and discovered that this is such a huge key piece of, the whole picture.
Right.
So when I started this virtual program, I was looking at my social media and I said, I don't know what to put on these pages anymore because I'm not able to photograph my students like how I used to. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
those opportunities were now very gone. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you put out your master's messages each week and put out inspirational stories? And, people really need that right now. Like this is such a hard year, and there's a lot of people that are really feeling challenged and are looking for some positivity. So why don't you kind of
Mhm.
put, instead of just to your students, like make that public and make that part of your social media calendar? And I was like, Oh, okay. I guess I could do that. And so, we have the studio here in the basement and the lighting and everything all set up, kind of from like the t-shirt store. So I just popped my tripod up and, I just started sharing whatever the theme of the week was going to be. I started it on a Monday and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every Monday. And I got to be honest, like it was very much outside of my comfort zone. And even still, like probably on Monday, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to film my thing and I'm going to put it out there. And every time I post it, I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, because you have to, you kind of be a little fearless when you put yourself out there,
Yes.
and so for me it's still kind of a little bit of a stretch outside of my comfort zone, but the feedback I'm getting from it, like I can see who's sharing it on Facebook and like what they're saying and the different responses I'll get, like if I'm brave enough on any given week to post it on a community page. It's so well received and it's people are so thankful, and it's like, and it's usually at the end of that Monday when I start to kind of see those responses, it's like, this is why we do it. This is why we do what we do. And, regardless of the people, if the messages, if they're interested in martial arts or interested in training, great, right? Or if not, at least when they think of Tearney's or they think of Alexis, they'll say, you're the one that put out the messages. You're the one, or this message or this story resonated with me. And that makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's awesome,
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah.
absolutely. And one of the things you said is, getting outside that comfort zone. And one of my favorite things to say is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And when
Daily.
you do stuff, when you do stuff like this, like I joke all the time, I'm not the most entertaining person in the world. So for me to be in this realm of doing a podcast and having people on, it's fun, but it's also a little nerve wracking because it's like, I hope we're providing some kind of value. And it's not like when I do it by myself, if I do a podcast by myself, I feel like I'm just ranting and rambling about something that who knows if anybody's going to give a crap. But, it's that
That's
genuine. I
such a
found that,
feeling. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I have found that when you're real and you're genuine and you're providing some type of message that can really resonate with people, and it may or may not be your students, it may or may not be customers, it could be your own family members that just go, "Yay, good job," but at least you're
Right. Yeah.
at least you're doing something positive. And I think that, like you said, the positivity right now amongst all the negative, something's got to drown out the negative.
Yeah. Yeah. We need a break for sure.
Without a doubt. Do you see yourself kind of segueing into personal development influencer kind of role, or are you just kind of staying in your lane as
I
far as?
mean, I guess what I'm trying to do right now is because the way I see social media I mean, and now I've got two online businesses. So social media is
Mhm.
the core of like trying to,
Oh yeah.
connect.
Yep.
You have to understand with social media that if you're on Instagram, you're not shopping for something. You're not looking for something. Like you're just there because you're going to fill some time.
Yep.
So what is working is that I'm providing free, valuable content to people. And if they're drawn to it and attracted to it and they decide to follow, then,
Mhm.
their interest may continue to build, and that's great. But,
Right.
personal development is something that's, I mean, I've watched my dad. I mean, my dad had personal development cassette tapes in his car and like Zig Ziglar, and like he would be
Oh
listening to them like all the time in the car. Like I was like, Dad, can we just listen to the radio? And like I think I was kind of raised like listening to these kinds of things and these kinds of
yeah.
concepts. So now for me, like
Right.
with like listening to podcasts every morning, that's like a huge part of it, and reading books at night before bed, like personal development I think is so important. I don't think enough people take advantage of it.
Mhm.
So I mean, just knowing like what it does for myself, like if I mean, and I don't see myself as some guru, and I don't have like the accolades, like people out there on larger scales. But
Yep.
hey, if I can pass something on that I've learned, and that's like martial arts too, like being an instructor in the martial arts, if I learn something that I can give to you and it makes your life better and helps you in some way, that's
Mhm.
awesome. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, the beauty of the technology we have is the fact that in the dojo, I might be able to reach like a couple hundred people, a few hundred people. But now, I mean, even one of my posts, like it might get a couple thousand views within like the first hour. It's like, hey, that's pretty cool. Like, there's some
Yeah.
serious potential here.
I think you hit something else there too, was talking about taking that time to develop yourself, to have
Yeah.
that self-care. And I recently got into doing some coaching for real estate agents, and I've done a couple of personal coaching. That's some of the stuff we talked about, is that importance of mindset and developing yourself, taking the time every day instead of picking this up
Yeah.
and scrolling mindlessly. Start your day with um, reading, meditating, working out, whatever the routine might be,
Yeah.
in order to really start every single day on a positive and doing something for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was some statistic that I read was like the top performing people, the one of the things that they have in common is they value personal development. That's like a
Yeah.
regular part of their day.
Right.
It's just a pillar in their life. So
Hmm.
if you aspire to be like the best version of yourself, well, yeah, like that's what we need to be doing. That's a huge part of the recipe. And I think it was Jim Rohn said that your level of success will rarely exceed the level of personal development that
Hmm.
you have obtained for yourself. And so I think that's like really, really, really profound. If
Yes.
you're a high achiever and you want to go to, great lengths to get better in life, like it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about before how I worked in public safety for 20 years, and then I got into the real estate business, which has transcended into other things. And it was a real mind shift for me because I knew nothing about business, nothing. I knew nothing about personal development. So I had to learn all this stuff. And the more I dove deeper into it, the deeper I got into it, the better things were, the better things changed for the better. So there's a lot to be said about mindset, taking care of yourself, and doing that for yourself. Because prior to that, I mean, years ago, I was in a real dark place, and if you asked me how you doing, I would have said terrible. That would have been my answer every single time, terrible.
Oh man.
Now if somebody asks me how you doing, I say fantastic.
Yeah.
Because realistically, I think that, and I'm sure you'll agree that, how you have this is how everything else is going to go.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
that's such a huge thing.
yeah. So obviously, you got into the martial arts business based on being the family business, and um, I guess we'll do a little fun thing here. What's your favorite part of martial arts, and what's the not so favorite part of martial arts?
Do you mean as an instructor or as a student?
As a student, as somebody that had to learn all of all of this, what's the favorite? What's the not so favorite?
Oh my goodness. Probably my favorite is learning something totally new. I'm a fifth degree black belt in our system, but I've
Mhm.
had the pleasure of putting on a white belt and going and training in a brand new system.
Oh.
And that is so, I mean, when you've been training for like is it's my entire life, right?
Hmm.
I don't remember what it was like to be a white belt. I was a little kid. And to put on a white belt and everything's new and it's just that is like the coolest experience. I know some people are probably too proud to do that, or maybe their ego gets in the way. I'm not putting on a white belt. Well, no, put a white belt on me. I'm very happy to go be responsible for not knowing a thing and just
Yeah.
let's learn, let's get into it and let's get motivated. So that for me is like my favorite thing. Um Least favorite thing? I don't know if I have a least favorite thing.
Well,
Um,
that's all right.
there's not much. I mean, I don't know. There's really not much to dislike. It's just,
But and that just speaks for doing what you love,
yeah,
and if you can't find any downside to doing what you're doing, then that means you're meant to be doing it.
I think
So
so.
that, yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And I like how you said, just kind of going back to the beginning, going back to the basics and going back to the beginning, and just not being in charge of anything. And
Yeah,
um,
no one has to say to me, "Hey, I have a question. I don't know your answer. I don't know."
yeah, I don't know. That's great. Cool. Well, here's another fun question for you.
Okay.
Karate Kid, fan or not?
Old school or this new Cobra Kai thing?
We'll go with old school,
Old
since I'm
school,
old school.
Big fan. Big fan.
Big fan.
Those movies, like I grew up watching those over and
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Yeah. And those were movies. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but when the first Karate Kid movie came out, I believe it was 1984. There weren't a lot of kids in karate. I mean, there were a few, but it wasn't
Right.
that movie. That like I know I saw the impact it had on my parents' dojo. It was the
Yeah.
Fairmount Dojo on West Genesee Street. That movie
Yeah.
came out and people were inspired and excited to get their kids into martial arts. And
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just our school in Syracuse, it was schools across the country saw an influx of children in martial arts. So, I
I'm
mean,
sure.
yeah, we welcome that. Yeah, anytime Hollywood can put out martial arts in a way that's like going to show it and make it
Yeah.
appealing to people, that
Yeah.
has huge benefits for us.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I got into Cobra Kai just for the
Yeah.
sentiment because I'm an old guy and I remember the original Karate Kid and the ones after that, and so they did Cobra Kai and at first I'm kind of like, come on, really? But then the more I got into it, the nostalgic feeling, I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
So where are you taking your rocket ship, your own Tierney's martial arts rocket ship? Where are you taking this?
Yeah. So, obviously the goal is to have that physical space,
Hmm.
to be back and have my feet on the ground, the way that I've always known it to be. Um,
Hmm.
but we've got to see where this whole situation is going. I had been reaching out and I spoke to a handful of people, about some spaces recently.
Hmm.
But since now I'm kind of seeing that the landscape is changing as far as the COVID thing is concerned. I don't even know if am I allowed to say that? I know some
Yeah, that's
some
I
platforms
won't.
don't,
You won't
but
get
like
dinged on this show for that.
the Rona.
The Rona.
It's the situation. I think as much as I would love to rush into something, I'm going to be smart about this because that it's having a huge impact on people that are renting spaces. Like regardless of whether or not you're operating, your landlord is expecting you to pay your rent,
Pay the rent.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's not a good position to be in, at least with this virtual position. It doesn't matter what's
Right.
going on in the outside world, we're going to have classes and we're going to be operating. And, a lot of people I spoke to a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she doesn't run a martial arts school, she runs actually a dance school, and she loves what she does, but she said
Mhm.
the guidelines, the restrictions, that she's like, she said to me jokingly, she's like, Alexis, I think I've burned my the fingerprints off of my hands from all the cleaning I have to do between classes. I think it's taking the joy out of teaching. And
Yeah.
yes, by all means, like we need to have clean facilities and we need to follow guidelines and whatnot, but it's
Right.
wearing people thin.
Yeah.
And so for me, that doesn't sound like a good time.
No. No.
At least, yeah, and this way
I
we
can
can
imagine
run our
that.
classes. I don't have to, be concerned with that aspect of things.
Yeah. No. Completely understandable.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate taking the time to come on the show today to talk
Yeah,
about
thank
your
you.
business, what you've done to really kind of reinvent Dad's business, and really promote some real great messages. How would people find you on either on social media or otherwise?
Yeah, so they can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. It's Alexis Tearney Kuhl. That's just kind of my public page. And then they can also follow either of my businesses. You can do Tearney's MA, that would be for the dojo. And then also
Mhm.
for the vintage store, that is Luck Vintage, LHUK Vintage. So yeah, we've got a few pages going on at once.
Yep.
Keeps us busy, but it's all
Sure.
good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, guys, I would really appreciate it if you would either share this with somebody you thought might get some value out of it, share Alexis's message, drop a like or a comment. If you have any questions for her, feel free to reach out or drop a comment, reach out to me. I'll make sure I get it to her. But Alexis, thank you again for joining me here today. And,
Yeah, thank you
I
so
wish,
much for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And I wish you and your family very safe and, happy holidays coming up.
Yes, same to you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is the At the Coffee Table podcast where we, pull a chair up to the virtual coffee table and we'll talk about anything and everything and hopefully bring a little bit of value to each and every one of you. So with that, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a great day.